Pray. God of all time and space, we thank you for all the blessings in our lives, and especially we thank you for this community in which we live. We thank you for our nation, and we thank you for all of your creation. May this time we spend together be fruitful, and may the energies of all who have gathered here be used in such a way as to bring glory to you. May the spirit of unity and the spirit of compassion and the spirit of commitment sustain us through all that today and tomorrow will bring. It is in your holy and mighty name that we offer this prayer. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Bach, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fletcher?
Here.
Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. We have no proclamations, and under agenda additions, deletions, and adoptions, I actually have 4 things for the council to consider. Number 1, I want to move 7A up. That's the Wayne comments and cautioning on the legality, if that's agreeable.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move it up.
I'd like to move it up as the first thing in public comment. I think it's appropriate there. In other words, when I finish talking, I'd like him to come forward, him to cover his point.
Okay.
It seems to be okay. Mr. Gorey has a report to present. And after Mr. Wilson, I would like to be able to call him. We'll have to ask Mr. Gorey for how many minutes he would like. So I'm saying that probably will be longer than 3 minutes, but we'll ask him when he stands up. Number 3, I'm planning lunch around 12:30 or 12:35. I have to have some outpatient surgery over the lunch hour. So if we could reconvene at 1:45, I hope I will be back by then, if that's agreeable.
Certainly.
Okay, and then the last one is I want to run this meeting on what has not really been resolved, but which we gave guidance last time, which is 3B1, which elicits the rules of how city council meetings should be held. Really, it doesn't represent any change, and most of the points, I think, are in fine print on the agenda today. But first of all, I want to state there's 2 kinds of public comment. Those that people ask for more than 3 minutes, and those which is they have to have permission for or permission from city council, which I just asked for Mr. Gorey to have more time. And those that are limited by 3 minutes. I'm going to begin to use the red light, saying that if you are getting at the end of your time, the light will warn you, and that's a nice invasive way to avoid flagging you. I want to remind you that City Council is interested in facts and your opinion. We're not here to debate with you. We probably rarely will answer. But it's important that you give us your opinion. That's what we're here for. That's what public comment's about. Again, nothing personal. All questions directed to the chair, which is me at this point in time. As far as debate is concerned, debate's not appropriate in public comment. You can get up and make public comment after any item on the agenda, but you can only do it once. So in the first public comment, there'll only be one possible appearance. I'm cognizant that this is election season. There's to be no campaigning. This is a non-political body, and there are other places people can campaign. So I will caution people if they go over that line. And I will remind you that the council can overrule me, but I am going to run the meeting by 3B1, which presumably will get okayed today. And there was some talk about whether it was the right or not, and I think we came to a tentative agreement. We'll know whether it's formal later on. So I wanted to set the rules for public comment because they're going to be held more strictly today and into the future if the resolution is passed. Wayne, I pass the ball to you, please.
Well,
Mayor, I had a couple of changes
Yes.
to the agenda, if I may. We're going to pull item 2D5, 69 kV breaker replacements.
1D5. Is that what it is? No, that's 2D5,
yeah.
Okay.
And also
Which one is it?
2D8, the license agreement
agenda.
for Raymond Sander Residential Dock.
Number 5, consent agenda. And then number 8, license agreement.
And if we just may switch an item on the agenda, item 3B1 should actually be 4A and read under ordinance and resolutions for future public hearing.
That was the one you mentioned, Mayor. It's actually its first reading. It just inadvertently got put under resolutions.
And I have a question, just a question. Under B1, under resolutions, this is an ordinance. Why is it listed under a resolution?
That's the one we just moved. It was a mistake. We're putting it under first readings for ordinances and resolutions. It's going to be 4A now.
That's it. All right, sorry, that was the one you were talking about. Okay.
All right, are there further changes, recommendations?
Motion for approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved, 5-0. All right, Mr. Wilson, would you come forward, please?
Did you want my comments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just moved me. I just wanted to, as you all know quite well, the city is currently involved in a lawsuit with Indian River Shores. Of course, we're required by state law to go through the dispute resolution process, but it is a lawsuit. And then we also have a Public Service Commission petition that's been filed by the Board of County Commissioners with the Public Service Commission. And I just wanted to caution the council, as I have our Finance Commission and Utilities Commission, because they deal with this subject quite often, obviously. Because we are in litigation, basically my advice is try to confine your comments to other than those lawsuits and the city's positions and responding to comments about those things or how things should go or how they should come out or what have you. It's the same advice I'd give to any client when they're involved in a litigation. If someone has a remark, obviously just thank you, but don't get into debates with persons about the subject matter of the lawsuits is my advice.
Mr. If I
Ms.
ask a
Brown?
question, under what circumstances then, since the council, we have sunshine laws, we're not able to discuss things among ourselves? I know that we have proceeded to defend these cases, that action's being taken. But when will we have any discussion on the direction we're taking and how we're proceeding with these? That the council will be able to give input.
Well, as no matter of course, the city manager has, through his authority, and I think we already, Chef Wright was already retained on a PSC matter originally that Mr. Faraday and Haran had filed, and as you know, Chef Wright was also involved with trying to further the sale of the electric utility to Florida Power and Light. I think it was just a natural case when we had the Public Service Commission petition filed that he would continue to represent the city before the Public Service Commission. And, of course, the lawsuit that was filed, we needed representation there, too. And since it's basically the same matters, I think the city manager and I agreed that he was the right person to go ahead and represent the city. And, of course, he does have a certain amount of authority under the code. We can't guarantee that it's not going to go over his purchasing limit. If the council wants to give its opinion on who represents the city, they can certainly do that.
My issue is that I've seen this extensive public records request that went to the county, that we're looking at a more adversarial relationship, within our own community, and I think if it could have been.
been sued.
Yes, I understand that.
And that's adversarial. I'm sorry. It's fact of life. And he needs to get whatever he needs for backup to defend the city. And so that's what he's done. We're not going to control how he develops his case to defend the city, not tell him to ask for documents or records. I mean, he's got to do that. It's his duty to do that.
Just real quick, does this have any basis for like a shade meeting, since we can't talk about this publicly, if we want to talk about this as a group?
We can call a shading for to talk about litigation strategy, and we can certainly arrange that with Mr. Wright to come down and conduct one of those.
I think, yes, I'd certainly request that we do one.
Yeah.
Well, if that's going to be done, I would suggest that it be around the first September or 2nd September meeting, as the case may be. I'm going to be out of town till then anyway.
We'll make it the 1st September meeting, if at all possible, and talk to Chef. I'll be with him tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So.
And I would suggest that we do it even sooner, since I know that you'll be having some mediation hearings with Indian River Shores, and as these things progress, I think we ought to set it up as soon as possible.
I would say, Wayne, let me ask you a question, so I haven't had an opinion. Any mediation meeting would likely occur when? Before or after September 2nd?
Well, the first, in the public service, or I'm sorry, in the lawsuit, in the conflict resolution, I believe Thursday, there is a meeting with Indian River Shores, and the county commission will decide today whether or not they're going to participate. So Mr. Wright will be here, but who knows how long that.
What time does that meeting begin? 9?
Starts at 9 o'clock, yes, and we've scheduled it for all day at the Indian River Shores Community Center. And following that, there will be a meeting between the councils, the Indian River Shores Council, assuming that the city or the town manager and myself cannot resolve the issue, which I don't know what the likelihood of that occurring. But the next meeting will be between the Indian River Shores Town Council, the City of Vero Beach City Council, and if the county becomes a part of the action, then they will also, so you'll have 15 elected officials who will sit down, and that's the second stage of the process. The third stage is when you bring in a mediator, and it goes back and forth between the various parties.
I just still object as to staff going into negotiations without getting clear direction from the council. And if we can't do that public, that we have to have that opportunity.
Mayor Winger, when do you leave town?
This afternoon. I'll be back the day after Labor Day. I have a job. And I believe Mr. Kramer has a job also. I would suggest to you that before the meeting of the 2 or 3 elected bodies is sufficient time to do this, Mrs. Turner. In other words, what do you want? I personally do not believe in micromanaging city managers, and I certainly don't believe in micromanaging attorneys.
No, but I think you need to give a clear direction as to where you want to go with this.
But the point of clear direction, I think, properly is before the second occurrence, which is the meeting of the various boards.
So essentially, you're handcuffing our team that's going in to meet with Indian River Shores on Thursday by not giving them any clear direction and saying, well, no, we will sit and visit with it after that meeting. If that's your choice, that's what.
I don't think it's that cut and dry. I don't see any other council members. I mean, we've got 4 other council members that are not making that big of an issue. I do think we do need to sit down in a shade meeting and discuss this, in order to resolve any, ideas that staff's running the show. But I don't see an overwhelming majority wanting to change the direction that's already happening.
Just for clarification also, we're several steps and several weeks away from actual litigation. So we've got to go through this process first, and I think there'll be plenty of time for input that we will find out that the first meeting really of this process is to find out exactly what are the facts, what are the allegations, defined allegations that we can bring back, and both the town manager and myself would have to bring that back to city council for anything that we would tentatively agree upon. And then, but you have to go through this whole mediation process before you actually get to litigation. So you will have some time to do that. At the Public Service Commission, we have obviously filed our brief. You had to do that in a timely fashion. It was due last Thursday, I believe. And then the Public Service Commission has so many weeks, but I'm not sure there's any real change in strategy in that particular one, because that is a determination of facts.
No, once again, I think it's still due the council a description and an explanation of the charges being filed against us, what we think our positions are, how we're going to move forward with it,
And I agree with that. I think shade meeting is the appropriate vessel.
Well, I'll make a motion that we have a shade meeting prior to the next city council meeting then.
I'll second.
Call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Or you yes or no, Ms. Turner? I don't know.
So at least it's before the next council meeting. At least we've set some kind of a time.
All right. Passes 5-0. Mr. Wilson, would you come forward, please? And you've asked for 15 minutes. Would you like that I turn on the light at 13 minutes? And you also say myself and others who may ask to participate, you're welcome to bring them forward if you like.
I'm not sure which one of these to choose. Slideshow, fourth one over.
Yeah, the slide.
Well, I'll just have to, I'll press the button. Just move the mouse four spaces over.
I just didn't know. I don't know how to get this stuff off the side. I'm sorry.
That doesn't go off.
Okay. Good morning, Council. My name is Charles Wilson, 2134 18th Avenue in Vero Beach, Florida. I will rush, since we're going, I might as well keep going. We're going to have the first use of the red light on Charlie Wilson. I'm so proud. So let's begin with this. What I plan to produce today is not anything about a campaign, as Mr. Winger had referred to. This is about a plan to go forward that is different than the plan that we have, which is to give us hope for some relief from what's been happening to us. I'm holding an ad, a copy of an ad that appeared in the Press Journal. And it said, "We believe that positive and creative leadership can again make our electric system competitive in the area of electric rates and hold down property taxes. There is no changing the fact that our rates are currently higher than FP&L, but we honestly feel the city has done little to find solutions." The ad goes on to say, "We all want lower electric rates, but we don't want to be stampeded." It sounds like something we've heard before and what we've been told today. But this ad actually ran on September 5th, 1976 in the Press Journal, 37 years ago. So when we're talking about giving direction to our attorneys or giving direction to what's going to happen in potential conflicts with our neighbors, I ask one question, and that is, how long are they supposed to wait for the city of Vero Beach to do something? So one of the things that we have found out is that after negotiating for 5 years, that we own nothing. The FMPA, Chef Wright, who you just referred to, who was chosen after a new attorney was demanded by the FMPA, and I'm so pleased that he's now our representative. The FMPA is an actual co-owner of the plants. The project's participants, including Vero Beach, are not actual owners of the plants. They have rights to the output and responsibilities to pay the cost. He wrote that on June 16, 2014. We have now learned that there is no end to our obligations. We have learned that there is no actual price to get out of FMPA. We have learned that we have been used as collateral for risky investments, loans, swaps, market speculations, and have been presented with a bill from FMPA that is 11 times larger than the city's entire tax revenue. The city manager has testified that we are unable to pay even a fraction of the current debt because of our connection with the FMPA. We've been through 2 referendums, 4 elections, and a complete survey of ratepayers. At each opportunity, the vast majority of voters told us to get out of the electric business. This is no longer a matter of excess rates only. It is a struggle for the survival of our city. The sale of Vero Beach Electric to FP&L continues to be the best way forward, but the issues have grown much larger than a sale to FP&L. The only thing worse than getting into the FMPA would be to stay in the FMPA. And as it has become very famous, in order to keep VERO, we must in fact keep VERO at all. We must get out of the FMPA. So what is our current status? Our current status is the deal is dead, get over it. On June 6, 2014, Mayor Richard Winger told the Men's Republican Club, the deal is dead, get over it. So the question is, why are we unable to get out of the FMPA? Why is the city either unwilling or unable to get out of the FMPA? Well, to summarize it, some say we got here because the sale was doomed from the beginning and could never happen and should never have been started. Others say we are here due to a lack of action or commitment by this council majority. Whatever the reasons, we are here. Negotiations stalled, no plan of action. The current proposal is the deal is dead, get over it, consisting of 3 parts. One is the deal is dead, when 6 months ago, according to the candidates, it was a done deal. Number 2 is we need to stay in the FMPA. Why? Because we have no options. We have no rights. And number 3, we can get lower rates, which is exactly what we've been told since 1976. Today I'd like to present a different plan. It's called the VERO plan. And it stands for VERO Electric Reorganization Option, spelled VERO. The mission of the VERO plan is to protect the city of Vero Beach and its citizens, achieve separation from the FMPA, pay our legitimate, I underline legitimate, debt, avoid the unnecessary expense of legal challenges from political subdivisions such as the town of Indian River Shores and Indian River County, and to bring rate relief to our electric tax ratepayers. Now, 2 things have been made clear to us in our negotiations with FMPA. The 2 lessons we have learned is, first, we must get out of the FMPA in order to protect our citizens and our town. And number 2 is the FMPA will never let us go. Under any circumstances, for any price, in any time frame, the FMPA is going to keep us. It's like we called our FMPA in Orlando and said, do you want us to keep sending money? And they called us back and said, yes. On May 7, 2014, 2 months after the City Council failed on March 4th to support FP&L in its negotiations with FMPA, FP&L withdrew from further negotiations, writing, we continue to believe that motivated parties working in good faith can bring this sale to a conclusion and in turn make lower rates for Vero a reality. Although we know that a negotiated settlement allowing Vero Beach to leave FMPA is preferred, it has become clear that FMPA is not a willing seller or a motivated party or working in good faith. FMPA is not our friend. They are not our partner. They are our captors. On March 5, 2014, the FMPA said good faith does not obligate FMPA to carry responsibility for getting the sale done. That is the city's and FP&L's obligation. He went on to say FMPA will not terminate the Vero Power contracts. The president of FP&L wrote back shortly thereafter on March 10th, FPL and the city's attorneys continue to disagree with many of the rigid positions that FMPA has taken regarding the contracts and necessary steps in order to close this transaction. OUC was next to withdraw, citing irreconcilable differences with FMPA's interpretation of current contracts. Note, not differences with the contract, differences with FMPA's interpretation. So step 1 in the VERO plan is to understand that we must have any solution is one that requires that FMPA not require approval. We are not going to get FMPA approval. We need to understand that. And also that we need to reach agreement by 2016. So many things, including territorial agreements, contracts, and our all requirements, all end in 2016. Step number 2. Step number 2 is to protect the assets of the city and our citizens from the FMPA by separating the city's assets and responsibilities from the responsibilities of VERO Electric. This has to do in business. It's done many times. We know exactly what this means. Remember, the FMPA has no connection to Vero Beach taxes, only ratepayers. We also know that under testimony of the city manager is that the city has not paid for and does not own assets that the VERO utility has. That all the poles and everything else has been paid for by the VERO utility ratepayers. Not a dime of taxpayer money has gone to purchasing assets of the utility. It is not, let's see, using the Mayfield bill as a guide, we need to separate the assets and obligations of the city of Vero Beach and VERO Electric Utilities with the council sitting as a utilities authority or through the formation of a legitimate utilities authority. Also underline legitimate, because there is a proposal for utilities authority that's designed is simply to protect the FMPA from future elections and from future people being able to fight the FMPA. It is not necessary to have an additional expense or additional layers of government to accomplish this. Remember, at least for now, Vero Beach taxpayers have no obligation to the FMPA, although they've been trying to change that. There has also been much discussion of the legal rights of the FMPA, but the citizens of Vero have legal rights also, and we need to be prepared to use them. The third step in the Vero plan is what you talked about earlier. This is how we got into trouble. We allowed the attorneys to determine what the city was going to do instead of the city to determine what the attorneys were going to do. There is no case of being a client of an attorney where you as a client are not allowed to direct your attorneys in what direction they want to go. And the fact that you're trying to be stopped from doing that is how we got here. And it's how we're going to get deeper into this. So instead of fighting our neighbors in Indian River Shores and the county, it is time to have a united front. Instead of spending money fighting our neighbors, use that money to reorganize the electric utility and pass through the suit to FMPA as a third party. Secure from these other parties that all actions will cease upon completion of a sale to FP&L or another third party. Interested parties, such as the FMPA, must be aware that they can stop reorganization, they can stop litigation at any time by being a reasonable seller. Step number 4 is to identify and pursue all options, including cost-cutting measures and renegotiating contracts and plant closures, which I believe the mayor and Mr. Kramer and other members of the commission or council have long advocated. What can be done to achieve lower rates in the short term should continue. We must realize, however, that permanent lower rates cannot be achieved as long as we are part of the FMPA. Lastly, step number 5 is to work with local legislators to pursue legislation that requires municipal electric companies with outside ratepayers to choose one of two things. They may either be subjected to Public Service Commission regulation, or they can allow ratepayers a choice of providers. They can be a monopoly, or they can be a business, but they cannot be an unregulated monopoly. Municipal electric companies can be regulated with no customer options and having no voice in the elections. Many cities have made an unholy alliance with the FMPA that allows them to shift city expenses to electric ratepayers with no recourse or concern for ratepayers. FMPA's dealings with the city of Vero Beach have brought this issue to light. When choice available, the FMPA can keep its bonds, keep its contracts, but have to compete for its customers. Letting the free market work may make FMPA re-examine its policies. I caution you, 2 words of caution. Watch out for the establishment of an authority that protects the FMPA's interest by agents working for FMPA's best interest instead of Vero Beach's, and also to interference in the reorganization and sale of the electric utility by special interests. I have included a timeline, which I've concluded in the backup because I don't have time to go over it, that will get us from today, where we present the plan, to December 16th, where we produce a sale in October of 2016, and the Utilities Authority is then dissolved in 2016. In summary, comparing the two plans, the VERO electric reorganization option does 6 things. Reorganizes the utility, petitions the court if necessary to set aside FMPA contracts if no agreement is reached, join with the Indian River Shores and the county as a team against the true problem, which is the FMPA, work together to implement cost savings to get lowest rates possible, pursue legislative options, and number 6, continue to pursue a negotiated settlement with FMPA. The deal is dead, get over it option says stay in the FMPA for generations, pay your bills with no local control or cost of rates, chase unattainable rate parity with FP&L, and face the real possibility of municipal bankruptcy. Many believe that for many years the citizens of Vero Beach have been poorly served by some council members, staff, and especially legal counsel. How did we get here? Who possibly advised us to be able to get to the situation where we are today? This has led our wonderful city to the brink of disaster. Former councils and staff have spun a wide web of deception, including the true amount of our debts and obligations under the FMPA, a less than truthful about the number of customers in order to escape the Mayfield bill. We have been deceived about contents of contracts that have been purposefully hidden from the public. Before the 2013 election, then candidate Richard Ringer wrote, "I expect it to close, but it all depends on FPL paying FMPA enough money." Fellow candidate Amelia Graves wrote, "The city has sold its electric system. We must work to finish the process as quickly as we can, since each day the cost of Vero Beach grows." Despite your assurances, the current council majority has proven either unwilling or unable to deliver what you promised citizens. We went from a done deal to a dead deal in 6 months. Diplomacy has failed, and there's no question the deal died on your watch. I have included in a packet of everything that I've said, including some backing up every single word that I have said today, that I'm going to provide to Ms. Vaugh. This is our last chance to get out of the FMPA. It is time to become a freedom fighter for VERO. If you have another plan, bring it forward. I will listen to it. If not, join me with a willing council majority. The Vero Beach electric reorganization option can go forward. It is time to stand up for VERO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. If there are further people that would like to talk about the electric, Alice, come forward, please. Remember, 3 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm Alice Johnson, and I'm 5470 East Harborville Drive. I echo everything Charlie said. As a matter of fact, I was starting to write something very similar. So thank you, Charlie, for the excellent work. But I started doing some financial analysis of what would happen at the end of 2016 when we will lose 10% of our customers, forget any litigation, and then in 2018 when we're going to lose 60% of our customers. If we're still tied to FMPA and have to pay those rates, I seriously believe one of two things will happen. Either Vero Beach will be in danger of bankruptcy, or instead of having rates that are 25% higher than FP&L, they'll have to be 50% higher or more. So those of you who have fought this sale and say, oh, a partial sale is wonderful, bring us your numbers. Because if you're right, I will sleep better at night. But I don't think you are. And I think it's time that you get on board with this, use the mediation to join in with our neighbors instead of fighting with our neighbors. Because God forbid if you lose in litigation and you are asked to tear out your lines, you will have a bunch of stuff that's worth nothing. God forbid if the city of Indian River Shores sues and wins the right to rebates because of the bad management. Are the people of Vero Beach going to be next suing their own city? I'm not saying this is going to happen, but for you to sit there and say, we don't have time to meet with the attorney, we don't have time to do that, I think you're making a terrible, terrible mistake. Please stand up and prove me wrong. Please discuss this today to tell the people out here and the world why I'm wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Further comment on the electric, if there is any. Seeing none, Mr. Gorey, or Mr. Whittle, come forward, please, sir. 3 minutes, Mr. Whittle.
Herb Whittle, 19 Park Avenue, and I'm a member of the Utility Commission for the city. What Mr. Wilson has presented sounds interesting. I'm not sure it's going to go through because we've tried suing FMPA before and lost. I am for the sale, and I think everybody on the council is for the sale, and I haven't quite understood why everybody seems to think that they're dragging their feet. I agree with Mr. Wilson. We've had some very bad attorneys that have gotten us into this mess. We should never have signed up the way we did with FMPA to start with. The OUC contract has some escalators in it that I don't understand. But I just think that when Jim and the others get together, it would be a good idea to see if we can work together. And I hope that it all works out for the best, and I hope we can get either our rates down or get out of FMPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whittle. Further electric? Mr. Mucher, come forward, please.
Mucher, 617 Indian Lilac Road. I just have one correction to make. I keep hearing that we've sued FMPA before and lost. We did in 2005. We sued them because on a completely different, totally unrelated issue. We sued them because we didn't think they were paying us enough money to run our electric plant. Had nothing to do with the general contractual arrangements or anything we're talking about today. So, let's put that fallacy to bed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mucher. Further electric? All right, seeing none, Mr. Gorey, would you come forward, please? You're already forward. Mr. Gorey, how many minutes do you need? You said you needed more than 3.
I think 7. Some of these questions.
Go forward,
but
please.
I will try to make this as brief as possible. This is the result of a 4-hour meeting. We are required by what our commission is to report every quarter on the status of the finances. And there's some other issues where we had voted upon. And I have an outline of what I am presenting that I had asked Tammy to put on. Well, in addition to the financial report, I'm going to discuss the proposed 2014-15 budget, some of the issues we raised, and provide recommendations on 2 staff proposals. First, the financial status through the third quarter of fiscal year 2013-14. Overall revenues, expenses, and capital programs for the general and expense funds are either as forecasted or marginally better than the budget. The variance analysis identifies various revenue and expense items to be monitored. One of the interesting is that our employee expenses are underrunning what the forecast is for a number of reasons. That's a positive marginally, but the budget is on track based upon what the forecasts were. Secondly, in reviewing the proposed 2014-15 budget, the Commission focused on the following. the concept of a proposed water sewer separate entity in order to deal with saving and rehabilitating our lagoon. And I know that the staff is working on that, a proposal to have such an authority or separate entity to focus on cleaning up the lagoon and accelerating its rehabilitation. Secondly, there is a concern regarding the underfunding of public works, streets, and roads, and the infrastructure. That was discussed at the budget hearings. There's a substantial negative financial impact on moving the water sewer plant off the river. That it is not economically feasible. There are other mitigating circumstances, but from a finance point of view, it is a problem as we see it. Recreation has been moved appropriately, as we believe, from the enterprise fund to the general fund. That has occurred this year, so it's no longer treated as a quasi-business. There was an extensive discussion, and we are going to make this, the Commission, a priority project to look at the other post-employee benefits. And to that degree, we are going to have actuaries and accountants come in and describe to us all of the intricacies because the post-retirement benefits are on a pay-as-you-go basis and not on a trust fund basis as the pension is. So we're going to have, and this was spearheaded by the Vice Chairman, Mr. Brovant, and who has looked at some of our neighboring cities and how they handle such, as well as nationally. So we will be having separate workshops dealing with the future of the funding of the benefits. And this is important because there's going to be some potential government changes in terms of whether or not it has to be a trust fund as opposed to pay-as-you-go. It's a couple of years away, but we wanted to be able to educate ourselves and the public and yourselves as to what options we have. Two recommendations. We unanimously approved the rate structure RFP, and we will review the RFP for its request for proposal for the Vero Beach Electric optimization when it's issued. Secondly, we unanimously approved to accept the staff's proposed rate sufficiency study to maintain current electric rates through the fiscal year. And finally, the staff provided an extensive planning analysis called SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats regarding potential opportunities to reduce rates. And I believe Jim is going to address this under comments. As mentioned, the Finance Commission was advised by the City Attorney that since there is litigation and issues involving the Indian River County and Indian River Shores, there will be no such discussion of those issues. Accordingly, the Finance Commission recognizes Vero Beach Electric as an ongoing concern as it stands today. And in response to its members in the City Council, the Commission is prepared to revise and update the five-year plan that was previously presented to the Council last year.
That's the so-called Gory plan, is that correct? Or?
Well, I don't want to take credit for it. It's the Commission's plan, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
But in any event, the notion is the Council and the Commission is saying, let's look into the future, not hypothetically, but what we know today as events change and more information comes out and whatever occurs, obviously one can would modify it. But as it is now, it's a going concern, and we're going to take the budgets today and just run them through as we did in the original plan. So finally, the bottom line, the city is and has continually reduced its workforce, reduced its staff, is robustly addressing the pension obligations, both in conversion of the plan as well as the funding it, so it will be on track to be fully funded within 10 years, and managing the general fund and the enterprise funds with a wide scope, as you know, not only the general fund, but the marina, the cemetery, the airport, water, sewer, our police department, solid waste, and of course the electric. Thank you.
Before you step down, does any member of staff or city council have any questions?
Just thank you for the commission's efforts. It's not easy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Further, Mr. Stop, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. Just a brief announcement, if I might. Dan Stump, 615 Camellia Lane, speaking on behalf of the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce, which is doing very well. We're about 100 members now. And we are sponsoring a City Council Candidates Forum. It's going to be our first candidates forum that we've sponsored. So any candidate who participates, any member of the public, and it will be open to the public, anyone who attends will be part of history in the making. As I said, it's going to be open to the public, so this makes it a little bit unlike any of the other candidate forums that you have attended, where the participants and the members who could, the people who could attend as observers had to be members of the sponsoring organization. This is going to be different. This is going to be open to the entire public. It's going to be well covered by the media. A candidate can participate whether or not he's a member of a party at all or either party. Anybody can attend whether or not you're a registered voter or not. Personally, I don't know why anyone who would want to show up if they weren't a registered voter, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. As I said, it's going to be sponsored by the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be Tuesday, September 9th, from noon to 2 p.m., and it's going to be held at the Elks Lodge here in Vero Beach. So thank you for your attention. Any questions on it? Okay.
Thanks for your announcement. Further comment? Alma May? Come forward, please, ma'am. Pleasure to have you come forward.
Good morning, Mayor Winger and members of the City Council. I'm Alma Lee Loy, and I've been a resident of Vero Beach my entire life. I'm here this morning to urge each of you to give the citizens of Vero Beach the opportunity to place our Crestlawn Cemetery in the protective custody of our city charter. This can be accomplished this morning by the adoption of the recommendations of your city attorney to make certain this item is a part of the November ballot. Crestlawn Cemetery was chosen by many visionaries, early pioneers, and citizens who felt a sense of place as their final resting place. It is indeed a place of hallowed ground. It should never be used for any other purpose. The citizens you represent deserve the opportunity to make their wishes known. I appreciate your kind attention this morning, and I look forward to the final resolution of this issue at the November election. And I appreciate this opportunity at this point on your agenda, because unfortunately, I do have some commitments that are coming up very quickly. So thank you again, and I appreciate your special attention.
Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for all you do for the community. It's indeed appreciated. Further comment from the public? Yes, ma'am. Come forward. Mrs. Fry, 3 minutes.
Agreed. Good morning, Council. Phyllis Fry, 275 Date Palm Road. I know we've all recently been inundated with an abundance of information and excluded from information about All Aboard Florida. I'm here to provide you with facts from Florida Not All Aboard, along with an update on the RIF loan. During the past 5 months, I and a growing number of concerned citizens have lent their full support to Florida Not All Aboard due to our research and educational efforts. As a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, we have garnered 29 resolutions from Brevard to Miami-Dade, including cities, counties, homeowners associations, civic organizations, fire, rescue, and emergency services, including over 25,000 petition signatures in opposition to All Aboard Florida. As summarized in the Sunday Press Journal, every candidate, regardless of party affiliation, has united with us and tens of thousands of other taxpayers in opposition to All Aboard Florida. For the public record, I'd like to share with you the recent letter from our Congressman, Wayne Posey, written to the Comptroller General of the United States requesting oversight of the taxpayer-funded $1.5 billion RIF loan. Quote, serving in the Florida legislature and now in Congress, I have consistently opposed taxpayer subsidies for rail initiatives. I'm therefore concerned about the potential exposure to taxpayers of all such projects, including but not limited to the All Aboard Florida application. It is also my understanding that the GAO conducted a review of the Express West high-speed rail loan application when it was before the DOT in 2013. It was reported that the Express West proposal was rejected due to concerns about the viability of the loan following the GAO review. I believe it is well advised to have similar review for all significant loans where taxpayers are on the hook for any potential losses. As such, it is prudent for the GAO to evaluate the specific application of the RIF loan by All Aboard Florida. I write to request that the GAO conduct a review of All Aboard Florida similar to the GAO review conducted for Express West, examining the potential risk and cost to taxpayers, the nature of such a loan, including possible interest rates that would be appropriate for this particular loan, and whether or not private financing could be sustained for this project. We have a duty to protect taxpayers, and this evaluation will help us uphold that duty. End quote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ma'am, you said you wanted to come forward. Please do.
Good morning. Hildy Tripson, 5020 12th Street, Vero Beach, Florida. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, for allowing me to come up here today. I am president of the Indian River County Historical Society, and I am speaking on behalf of the society. And I'm going to read this because if I start talking about history, the men are going to have beards and we're all going to be covered in cobwebs by the time I finish. The Indian River County Historical Society would like to express our thoughts on the situation that has arisen concerning the parks and public areas held in trust for our citizens and visitors. For over 30 years, our society's mission has been to protect and preserve the heritage of the city and other communities, both incorporated and unincorporated, in Indian River County. For several years, we have used the phrase, a sense of place, to describe our historical and natural resources. In fact, that phrase was used in the title of one of our books. Why do we use it, and what does it mean? to cultural geographers, anthropologists, sociologists, and even urban planners. That phrase is used to recognize that certain places have special meanings and hold a strong identity to our people. So the concerns being expressed to the City Council is all about a sense of place. The parks and the public areas, the cemetery, and other special places are all a part of the city's history. It is woven in the fabric of our lives in Vero Beach and Indian River County. It is the recognition of home, and it is a legacy entrusted to our elected leaders to hold these places safe and secure for all time. This legacy, these special places, was left to all of us, not just to the oldest nor the newest members of our communities, but to all of us. This legacy must be passed on to our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. So please, whatever you need to do, you must do to protect and preserve our sense of place. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for your comments. Much appreciated. Further public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. We'll go on to the consent agenda. By the way, as we get to each particular area, there's always public comment welcome on that particular issue. But as far as the consent agenda, does any member of council want to pull any item?
Move for approval as submitted.
Second.
Well, open it up to the public if there's any.
All right. We open it up to the public. Would anyone like to comment? And number 5 and number 8 have been removed from the agenda. All the rest are open for comment. All right, seeing none, having a motion and a second, I will call the question. Is this voice vote, Mrs. Bach?
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes 5-0. All right, we'll move on to 3A, ordinances and public hearings. Mrs. Bach, this one is a...
Quasi-judicial.
Huh?
Yes, this is a quasi-judicial hearing.
It's a quasi-judicial.
3A1 and 2.
And is this the first? This is the first or
This
second?
is the final public hearing. 3A1 and 2 can be read together, but we will need separate motions for each one of them.
All right. Then I will read 3A1 and 3A2. Under 3A1, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map by changing the future land use designation from residential medium and government institutional public use to residential high for properties located south of 18th Street between 17th and 20th Avenues, including leased public lands in lots 7 and 8, Block 4 of Edgewood's second addition to Vero, containing 1.2 acres, more or less, as requested by St. Francis Manor of Vero Beach, Florida, Incorporated, providing for conflict severability, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. 3A2 is coupled with it, but is an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, to amend the City of Vero Beach official zoning map by changing the zoning designation from RM 10/12, medium and high density, medium family residential, and H, hospital and institutional, to RM 13, high density multiple family residential, for properties located south of 18th Street between 17th and 20th Avenues, including leased public lands in lots 7 and 8, Block 4 of Edgewood's second addition to Vero, containing 2.12 acres, more or less, as requested by St. Francis Manor of Vero Beach, Florida, Incorporated, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Manager. Does any member of the council have any interest in this? Is there anyone that needs to be sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, staff presentations, I guess.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, I'm Tim McGarry, the Director of Planning and Development for the city. St. Francis Manor is requesting a combination small-scale future land use amendment and a zoning map amendment changes. The request is for a 1.2-acre property that abuts the existing 5.4-acre senior congregate multiple family development. It's located south of 18th Street along the east edge of 20th Avenue. Except for 2 lots identified as Parcel I, the 5 remaining parcels are leased from the county and the city. Bear with me, I'm doing my own stuff here. The future land use change is requesting a change from residential medium, which is 6 to 10 units an acre, and government institutional public use, which has no density, to residential high, which allows up to 18 units an acre. The zoning is RM 1012, and which is 10 units an acre, and hospital and institutional, which, as I said, no dwelling units per acre, to RM 13, which is 13 units an acre, or 18 if it's for senior congregate multifamily housing. The existing site is generally vacant, except for a hard-packed surface, a road in the north. There's an old asphalt parking lot still remaining from the old jail on Parcel C, and there's a non-conforming cellular tower located in Parcel G on the site. The site has access to a full range of city utilities, including water and sewer and electric service. Excess stormwater from the area and from the site drains in the Indian River Farms Water Control District drainage canal in the middle of 20th Avenue. Site has access to 20th Avenue, which is an urban minor arterial. It's classified under a comprehensive plan, and it's operating approximately about 27% of its level of service capacity. In comparing the uses, the requested versus the existing designation, basically, the ones that allow the existing designations allow up to 10 units an acre, as I was pointing out before, except for the southern part of the property, which allows nothing. What they're requesting is to go to residential high, which allows, as I said, 13 or up to 18 units an acre. Staff has found that both amendments meet the standards for such amendments on our forest statutes and the city code. And the only, I'll just briefly go over it. It's detailed in the staff report on this thing. Basically, to expand the development at the site, they will need to have this kind of rezoning. There's no possibility under the current zoning to expand the facility at that location. And one of the reasons they're going to need the higher density is obviously a per unit cost. They can lower the per unit housing cost to provide more housing opportunities for seniors with limited income. Level service is not an issue. The concurrences I pointed out, they have full service for all our public services, including traffic. And actually, the trips that could be generated under the existing designation would actually be a little higher than what could be under what could be redeveloped under this proposed rezoning. Clearly, the applicant's request in the public interest, as both the City Council and the County Commission have approved leases to allow this type of uses on this property. So based on these findings and our staff report, the staff is recommending approval of this. So unless you have some questions of me, you may want to ask if the applicant would like to.
I will ask for the applicant, but are there any questions of council or staff?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Will this be specifically for St. Francis Manor, for example, if they were to go out of business? Couldn't be turned into a
Well, they have leases, so most of the property's under leases, so they're held to those leases anyway. So, yeah. And you can ask the applicant some more detailed questions, but that's it. So other than the property they own outright, most of the property is under these long-term leases with the city and the county.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is there a representative of the applicant that wants to step forward, please?
Sworn in.
Thank you, staff. George Glenn, attorney for St. Francis Manor. I'd like to thank the City Council and the Mayor, and I'd really like to say thank you to your legal department and your planning. They've been very helpful. This has sort of been a drawn-out process. I think we've been at this for about 4 years now, and I think we're finally getting to the end here, and they've been very helpful. But I can hopefully answer any questions you might have. And so actually, to get specific to your question, most of the property is under lease with either the City of Vero Beach or the Indian River County, and those leases, I think for the most part, require that the land be used for senior low-income housing.
That
So
sounds great.
even if we were to somehow dissolve, the restrictions on the property would still exist. So whoever would want to take it over would have to continue to run it as a low income.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Anything else?
All right. Any further questions? Seeing none of the public is welcome to speak at this time. Anyone speaking for or in opposition? All right. Seeing none, Mrs. Turner?
Move for approval.
Second.
I need two votes first
Okay.
on the future land.
All right. Your motion is on 3A1, is it?
Yes, for the future land use map.
All right. That was seconded. I'll call a motion. Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yeah.
Mrs.
Yes.
Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. I need a motion for 3A2.
I make a motion for 3A2.
I second.
All right. Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. My plan was to move through the ordinances and then take a 10-minute break, if that's satisfactory with council. Sure. All right. We are now moving to 3A3, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, providing for amendments to the City of Vero Beach Charter, Section 5.05, relating to limitation on the sale, lease, trade, or gift of certain city-owned parks and public lands, calling for a referendum to be held on Tuesday, November 4th, 2014, to present the proposed amendment to the electors of the city, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date. Does anyone have, any council member have any convolution or ex parte communication on this, anything that needs to be? Are there people that need to be sworn in?
This is legislative. This isn't quasi.
Oh, this is legislative.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we go move what to staff comment.
Sure. If you like, what we did, if you remember, we first talked about, and Councilmember Turner had raised the issue about there could be a potential challenge because of the wording of subsection A when you go to sell a lot or burial rights or what have you in the cemetery. And so what we did, we were going to look at modifying the cemetery ordinance having to do with selling just burial rights. But what we found in research was that basically the courts look at whether it's burial rights or a deed, it really is just the right to bury human remains there. And either way, the courts look at it as though there is some interest in the land. So rather than go trying to quickly do modifications to the cemetery ordinance and change that in any way, what we proposed was just do as we did in subsection B, having to do with the exception where you can lease properties for the public or civic purpose, so long as it's a recreational, artistic, or cultural purpose. Also, we just made clear, I think, in the language we added, trying to use the same kind of terminology in the first part of B, that the city is going to continue to and able to still sell or transfer burial spaces, plots, lots, burial rights, and so on and so forth without a referendum, just to make it clear that it's permissible to continue operating the cemetery as we already do.
Council comments to staff before I ask for a public hearing? Seeing none, those are the... Go ahead, Ms.
Excuse
Turner.
me,
I'm
yes, I
sorry.
do.
I didn't see you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cotley, for clarifying this so that we don't have to have a referendum before we want to bury our grandparents or whatever. So I'm glad to have that straightened out. What I would like to ask, though, is that in listing these lands, we've placed the cemetery as item 22 and the old nursery as item 26. And I believe that this may be perceived as being deceptive or misleading by our voters, that we have these two particular properties hidden in a group of parks. So in order for complete transparency and to show that it's not our intent to hide these properties, but to showcase those, I move that we modify it to move the cemetery and the old nursery to the top of the list. And we'll be clear about what we're asking the voters to vote on.
Mr. Comment, any advice for council?
It's council's preference. I mean, even in the existing list, we have other city properties listed in with the parks. For instance, in the existing language, you have Municipal Marina at number 9, and then, of course, you have the wastewater plant and the power plant properties listed in there, too, at the end. But however you want to arrange the order is certainly up to the council. We can modify it.
This is for presentation for the referendum question, Mr.
Right.
Comment. And I think
Sure.
it needs to be very clear what we're asking the voters to vote on. Yeah, that's...
Sure, we can. I mean, in Lake Rose isn't a park, but neither is Leisure Square. Michael Field,
There's
of course,
still
is baseball
recreational
fields.
facilities.
Right. However you want to do it. We can move Creststone Cemetery.
We'll come back to that, Mr. Turner. Why don't we open it to public hearing, and then if you want to make a motion, we'll move forward on that as you see fit. Mr. Butcher, would you like to speak, please, sir?
Yes, Mark Mucher again. I know I sound like a broken record. I've probably made these points to you 5 or 6 times in the past, but other than taking the Theater Guild parking lot off the list, I haven't been effective. First of all, I asked you to clarify the issue of the power plant and the sewer plant. Not that we expect those to come up anytime soon, but the intent of adding those to this list of parks was in the event of a change of use. That was in the whereases and in the supporting minutes and the supporting ordinance that called for that referendum. It just that when the city attorney at the time wrote into the charter, the change of use part of that didn't get in there, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that. I'll give you an example. When we had the referendum on the lease of the power plant to Florida Power and Light, it's a power plant now. After that lease, it was going to continue to be a power plant, and then it was going to come back to us. So that whole referendum and all the drama and cost and everything else that surrounded it was not necessary because of this flaw in the charter, and I'm asking you to correct the flaw in this charter at this time. On a separate issue having to do with the cemetery, I have no problem. I tend to agree with Mrs. Turner, but I have no problem at all with requiring a referendum to do anything with the cemetery. However, I have 2 concerns. One, I think it ought to be a separate referendum because it's not a park, it's a cemetery. We could just as soon have 2 referendums as one, and people might want to vote on one and not the other because they are almost completely different items. Secondly, the old city nursery across the street is just a piece of vacant land, and those of you who may not want to ever sell anything might throw that in here along with Lake Rose, but suggest that you remove Lake Rose from this list as well. But on the subject of the old city nursery, unless and until it becomes part of some future cemetery master plan, I think you need to remove that as well, because there would have been a great spot for a dog park, for example. And you can say that picking up dog poop is recreational like you did on the beach, but I just don't believe it deserves the same degree of protection as the cemetery or an actual park. It's a piece of vacant land. So again, this is probably the 6th time I've mentioned that, but I ask you to consider it one more time. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. This is what we're forward to listen to you, Mr. Mucher. Or Mr. Wilson, you would like to come forward, please, sir?
Yes, Charlie Wilson, 2134 18th Avenue. 2 quick things. One is everybody wants to protect the cemetery. When you're considering this ordinance, remember it has to go to the public, and if the public gets confused, the public has a potential of voting no. So you may want to think about how clear this ordinance should be in order to be able to attract and be sure of the public support. I would hate for the public to be confused, and I want to. Some of the cyber thugs have been picking on Pilar Turner for being able to be involved in this process. But if it had not been for Pilar Turner, I'm surprised that the committee with Ms. Graves and Mr. Dagan, covered by our legal guidance, did not see this before you got to final reading. Where had Ms. Turner not brought this up, you would have had to have a referendum to bury my Aunt Grace. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble. And that's how we got into the electric problem, and that's how we got into this problem. So I want to suggest, number one, is that your patches that are going through, does that mean you can bury people at Leisure Square? I mean, are we now putting in this exception that says that says now you can bury people in any of these places? I think that I am absolutely, positively, 100% for keeping the heritage that we have in Crestlawn Cemetery as a holy place. But I think you need to be very careful about how you're presenting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Dan?
Good morning, Dan Lamson, 737 Timber Ridge Trail in Vero Beach. I am the executive director of the Indian River Neighborhood Association, and we have taken a very short position on this. I don't think you'll need the red light for me. And so the Indian River Neighborhood Association supports the proposed amendment to the city's charter to preserve and expand protection of parklands and green spaces on both the Barrier Island and the mainland. This amendment would prohibit the city from selling protected lands without voter agreement in the form of a referendum. It would look after many of the local parks not currently protected by the charter, as well as keep city assets like the cemetery from being developed or privatized without voter consent. With the modification made to the amendment allowing for the continued sale of plots at the cemetery, we feel this should move forward. All in all, the IRNA sees this as a positive move for the city, and we hope that you will consider supporting this amendment today and at the time of the election. Thank you.
Further public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment.
Davis.
Huh?
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Dagan, I'm sorry, I missed you.
You got to get that hand up.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue, Vero Beach. I'd like to say thank you to Councilwoman Graves for your help on this issue, and also to you council members for allowing us to work on this. Your city manager, your city attorney, your city staff were very, very helpful and worked very hard on this. And I want to say again, thank you very much for allowing us to work on it. I think as this process has been going through, there have been a lot of people that have been looking at this. As many of you know, I stay out a lot talking to people. They're aware of what's taking place. They're aware of this charter amendment. In fact, I always had a copy of it with me. They're aware of the properties that they're hoping that you will be kind enough to protect. There is no confusion, and a lot of the voters' minds that I spoke to, they know what they're voting on. And they would appreciate your kindness and your help, please, to protect all these properties that are on the list. And again, I want to give you a big thank you for allowing us to work on this. And I look forward to hopefully all of you voting on this, because it would really send a very positive message to our community. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Did I miss anybody else? Mr. Young. Colonel Young. I'm impressed with colonels because I never made it above E4. Also, my father-in-law was a colonel.
Good morning. Tony Young, 2204 Vero Beach Avenue. Speaking personally, but also as a past president for the Genealogical Society of Indian River County, and also as a longtime member of the Veterans Council of Indian River County, we've got over 14,000 veterans in Indian River County. If you go to Crestlawn Cemetery on any Veterans Day, or if you go on a Memorial Day, you'll find it clothed with innumerable flags. when I spoke this morning on the radio, I was asked to mention about some of the veterans that are on the Memorial Island. And I took that as an occasion to mention Gene Guy Evans. And for those who are not old-time Vero family, Gene Guy Evans is at Crestlawn Cemetery, and he was a 19-year-old young man that happened to be aboard the Reuben James. And the Reuben James was a vessel that was sunk by the Japanese prior to the beginning of World War II, before Pearl Harbor. And all of this goes back to part of what makes Vero Beach in Indian River County so fantastic. And that's the intent that I interpret this consensus to be, to seek for additional protection for that property. And simply looking to you as the stewards of Indian River County and Vero Beach specifically, I would hope that you would take that into consideration, because just as our predecessors are important, as we look forward to our children coming up, I would love to have them to be able to come back to Crestlawn Cemetery when I'm long gone and say, hey, this is one of the members that have felt that this is an important place to live. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time and energy. I know your heart's in the right place. Again, thanks.
All right. Is all comment? Seeing no further comment. Personally, I'm in favor of it as it's written, and I would, at the appropriate moment, make a motion to that effect. However, I would entertain a motion by Mrs. Turner, if she wants to make one, to change the order.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, these places do provide us with a sense of place, and it was a beautiful letter. Thank you very much. Was Tripp sent to the council, and things that we want to preserve. Once again, my main issue is transparency, not giving the impression that we are leading this list but with just recreational facilities, and that we, in an effort to hide or deceive whatever the public by putting in an enterprise fund into this list, so which is the cemetery. So all I ask is for us to be as open, as clear as we can, and let's say, yes, we love our cemetery. We're putting it up at the top of the list. We want everybody to know it's in there, and not go through the first half a dozen group here and go, okay, it's all parks. So I move that we do make that modification to the list of as it will read on the referendum question.
Is there a second?
Second.
So to move it to where? The top?
To the
Above
top of the
Block
list.
Manor Park, yes.
Okay.
And with the Old City Nursery below it.
So make Old City Nursery the second one.
Certainly, the only reason it's on the list is related to the cemetery.
And just so you know, I mean, the list is really just the way the committee developed it. No one put it alphabetical or in any particular order. So that's however you want it. That's fine.
That's the motion.
Mrs. Bach, can we resolve this by voice vote, this particular portion, or does it have to be a roll call?
This one should be roll call.
All right. I'll call a motion.
Yeah, there was a second.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right. I'll make a motion with that change that we accept the ordinance as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fletcher was first.
I don't know. It's a pretty close call.
Any further council comment? Seeing none, I'll motion Mrs. Bach.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right, we'll move on to 3A4, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 60.16 of the Land Development Regulation of the city relating to restrictions on the location of establishments dealing with or in alcoholic beverages, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. Mrs. Bach, does this require only one reading?
Yes, sir. This is our final public hearing.
And is this a public hearing or quasi? This is a public hearing.
This is just a legislative public hearing.
All right. Staff comment, please.
No, thank you, Mayor. Basically, this ordinance revises our alcoholic beverages to eliminate the requirement that alcoholic beverage service cannot be within 500 feet of a place of worship. This would bring our ordinance bring it into consistency with the state law, and also eliminate issues that we're having with churches are moving into commercial areas, and it would create some real problems for establishments that need to have an alcoholic beverage license. So unless you have specific questions of me.
Council, are there questions?
Tim, I think I asked you this earlier. If a church moves into a commercial district, they forego the requirements for the 500-foot clearance. Is that correct?
Well, what happens is if you already have a license, you're fine. But if a church moves in, it's going to restrict anybody else getting or expanding their license. In the future,
but
that's
it'll
correct.
grandfather in anyone that's there.
Yes, they're protected.
I just want to make that clear.
Right.
I'll open it to public hearing then. No one coming forward. I'll close public.
Just one question. Tim, you're saying that this is going to bring ordinance in compliance with the state law?
Yes, the state law does not mention churches. As I said, this is a vestige of the old blue laws that have been hanging around. You still see it in a lot of ordinances. The county took care of this several years ago, and now we're getting churches moving into commercial districts, and this would take care of that issue. And we have one, as I mentioned before, proposed on Flame Vine, which I believe they're going to go forward with.
So if an establishment had a conflict with this, they could go to the state level and just undo this ordinance anyway?
Well, unless the state changes the statutes, but that's not always easy. So we're following the statutes on this. Okay.
If there's no council comment, I guess we're ready for a motion.
Move to adopt as presented.
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Bach.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Crane? Mayor Winger?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
All right, this moves us actually to, we are calling it B1, but it is an ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to City Council meetings, agendas, and order of business, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date requested by the city clerk and city attorney. And staff comment, please.
Basically, we took the comments when the council discussed this prior to bringing it for first reading, and believe we've got it in the form that we discussed. If there's any other changes you want to make, just point them out. We can certainly modify from there.
Mrs. Turner?
I had a question on page 6, item 254. Written communication was deleted. We no longer allow people to write to council and ask that to be read.
No, because that's not typically what was ever done anyway. We don't typically get something in writing and then it gets read into the record. It's made part of the record anyway, if in fact it's presented for a council meeting.
But if someone is unable to attend a meeting to submit a letter, why wouldn't we accept that and they present it to the mayor and ask, yes, I'm not able to attend the meeting, but I would like my opinion heard? Why would we deny that?
I'll let Tammy speak to that. It's really nothing that's been done. It's not typically read, I don't believe.
No, usually, typical case was this morning we received a letter concerning the cemetery, and I had given council copies of it, but it wasn't read into the record, but is a part of, the records that we have in the office. The written communication, we always understood it as just something that had to be read into the record, which is why we took it out of the ordinance.
Right, and written communications are given to the council all the time.
I know, but still, I would like to see some opportunity for the public if they're unable to attend a meeting and they do want, their view presented at council,
and
they could give this to the mayor and ask, that this be read. Or
I would think having somebody else presented for them. My objection to it would be, in any given 2-week period of time, we get dozens of these things, and I can see the meeting being cluttered by it.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I would not think it practical. It's not that I'm against the concept. I just think it's very impractical. It's going to slow us down.
I mean, there's no, the rule isn't needed. I mean, everyone has the right to send written communications to the council on any matter, whether it's on an agenda or not. But whatever the council wants to do.
Okay.
But if it's that important to somebody, they can find a proxy to bring that on their behalf as well.
Okay.
All right, I'll open this to public hearing. Seeing no public hearing, I'll close public hearing. I would entertain a motion to pass it as written.
Well, this would be to go to public hearing.
Oh, okay.
When, Tammy?
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
I would entertain a motion to bring it forward September 2nd for the second hearing. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs.
Under discussion, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
On page 7, what is now 2 instead of B, I think you're taking a huge tool away, a very strong tool away from the mayor by saying, by striking out shall be declared by the presiding officer to be out of order. Any person who refused to obey order of the presiding officer in relation to preserving order and decorum shall be barred from further attendance. I don't know why that was taken out. Was there some...
Well, what we've done, we've tried to reorganize it where it made more sense. You had enforcement things in with procedures and vice versa. So actually that is now down under enforcement of decorum.
What page would that be?
That would be on page 8, and it'll be the number 3, enforcement of decorum, where it talks about any person making remarks, so on and so forth.
Okay, I didn't catch that you'd moved it down.
Very good. We just try to reorganize it where it made more sense.
Okay.
Right.
I'll withdraw my complaint.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call the question then.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes, and we have been running on this today, so there you go. All right, I think this is probably a good time to take a break till 10 minutes after 11. We may be able to do quite a bit before 12:30. So take a break till 11:10.